What is up, everybody? Eddie Barco here, and welcome to the Nebula Music Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Dylan Rao, a very talented man from the band Bare Hands, joining me for a very deep and honest conversation about his life, music, and basically what keeps him motivated. Now, we'll jump into the conversation in just a minute, but before we do so, I want to go ahead and let you know that this is a place where I talk to some of today's most influential, talented, up-and-coming, and even sometimes famous musicians about their mindset and approach to their career. And I think it's something that's very important because I'm always passionate and always interested in hearing how people stay motivated and how they pave their own paths. So every time I have somebody on this show, it's always something different. But the goal is always to give all of you different lessons that you can apply to your own music or to your own career. I know you guys are learning something new, and it makes me happy to be able to have someone like Dylan on the show to talk about his process. I was honored to learn more about his musical process, how he got started, and how he approaches his songwriting and what keeps him motivated. Now, I definitely want to let you guys know that since we recorded this interview, Bare Hands did announce a brand new album called Fake Tunes. And we'll go ahead and get into more details at the end of the episode, as well as talk about a brand new tour that they're going to be on supporting an amazing band that I love. But let's not waste any more time. Let's jump right into the conversation. All right, what is up, everybody? Eddie Barco here again, yours truly. I'm very excited because today I have someone that I've been looking forward to talking with for a very long time. And those of you guys who have followed the show from the very beginning know that I get very excited when I talk to some really dope musicians. And I myself am very much interested in getting to know more and understanding the mindset of talented musicians who have succeeded and who are doing really cool things. And so today is definitely no exception. I have someone very special joining me on the show. I have Mr. Dylan Rao of the band Bare Hands join me. Dylan, how are you, man?
Hey, I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me.
No, of course, man. You know what? Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule. This man's in the middle of a tour, and he's just, he's taking time out of his day to talk to me, man. I mean, how's that going for you guys, by the way? How's the tour coming along?
The tour's been good. We've been out for probably 2.5 weeks with Walk the Moon. We went to Canada. It was like freezing cold, like below zero. And then we went all the way to Florida. So, I had to pack all of my clothes.
Damn, man. So you're basically taking like 3 coats, and that pretty much takes up your whole entire suitcase right there, just having those giant-ass coats for the snow. Damn,
yeah,
man.
You can really only afford to bring one coat. And the key, a touring tip for anyone who's interested in becoming a touring musician, you have one really big bag, like a duffel bag kind of thing, and you keep all your clothes in there. And then you have to swap them out periodically with the dirty clothes that are in your tiny backpack that you bring everywhere with you, Because you don't want to be hauling your enormous bag of clothes in and out of the hotel and in and out of the venue every single day because it's an enormous hassle.
Yeah.
So, keep a pair of fresh socks in your backpack and you're good to go.
Hell yeah, man. Amazing tip from the man Dylan here. Dude, well, I don't want to waste any more time. I know that I like to talk a lot, but I would much rather you spend time talking about yourself. So, Dylan, if you don't mind, maybe you can start by telling us a little bit about, maybe your backstory a bit, how you got started in music, and we'll sort of take it from there.
Sure. Yeah, well... I
know it's
really
kind of broad. It's kind of broad, but take it whichever way you want, man.
Well, I really wanted to be an athlete, to be honest with you. I was convinced that I could be a professional basketball player, and I was dissuaded of that interest somewhere around 6th grade when I failed to make the middle school A basketball team and was relegated to the B team. And I kind of became aware as a 12-year-old in that moment, hey, if I can't make the A team at a suburban private middle school in Connecticut, the odds of me turning this into a profession seem pretty slim. And I think somewhere around then I started to focus my attentions on more of the creative arts. My parents were both big music fans. My dad is like a Who super fan, just loves the Who. And,
oh, hell yeah.
We listen to the Who in his car all the time. My mom's more of like a folky Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell kind of thing. So, listening to music growing up was like a key element, although neither of my parents are really musicians at all. My dad's a doctor, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom and also ran a program for inner city youth, getting into college, that kind of thing.
That's cool.
So yeah, there's no like music people in the family. Although I do have a cousin, my mom's cousin, who wrote a song for the band Boston.
Oh, no way. Which song?
Yeah. I don't even know the name of it, but I know it was on a record that went platinum because he has a platinum record in his like barn.
That's cool.
So yeah, I guess that's the only family member I knew. And then, fifth grade, I even before failing to make the basketball team, I was already probably pretty infatuated with like Green Day.
Oh, hell yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah. And so, and just like the badassness of rock music,
Yeah.
like back when it used to be badass, like reading Guitar World magazine before you even play guitar and like looking at all of like the Metallica and Misfits t-shirts in the back.
Yeah. Isn't that weird how that used to be the thing? Yeah, I totally remember. This is kind of a nostalgic trip, absolutely. But I remember when that was like the thing, being in fifth grade and loving the punk rock scene and all that. And I don't think that's the case anymore. I mean, I'm not hanging out with fifth graders, but I'm pretty sure that's not the thing anymore.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, it seems like it has morphed and that hip hop is I mean, like, when you're that age in middle school or whatever, you want to scare your parents with the music, and rock, I think rock is too old now to do that. Your parents listen to rock, so it's not gonna freak them out. It's not gonna shake them. Yeah, whereas
probably encourage you to listen to rock.
Right, exactly, right. But if you're 12 years old and you're listening to Triple X Tension or a number of these other face tattooed
rappers,
SoundCloud rappers, that could probably be pretty scary, I suppose.
Yeah.
So I totally understand culturally why that shift is happening. And but yeah, at the time when I was 12, it was still a viable option to play a black BC Rick guitar and like listen to metal and and be a part of that subgenre. And also growing up in Connecticut, we're kind of just a stopover land between New York and Boston.
Yeah.
There's just not a lot of big acts that are making time to go and play in Connecticut. And because of that, the scene is dominated by kind of the punk rock, DIY, emo, hardcore, book a VFW hall and bring 7 bands to play or something. That was kind of the local scene where I grew up.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like that had a huge influence in your upbringing. And so there's a couple things I'm actually really curious about. But one of the things that I found fascinating about your story so far is that after you pretty much, I mean, I don't want to say failed, but you recognize that maybe sports wasn't in your future, which again, I think you were saying you were a basketball player. Was it like a very quick light bulb moment that you pretty much decided like, all right, now I'm just going to try and be a musician? Or was it just kind of like, well, you know what? I don't want to do basketball anymore. And I'm just going to kind of see what else I want to do. And then music just happened to sort of be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it wasn't like I shifted my intentions in 7th grade or whatever into like being a professional musician. That was not what was happening. But that was when I started to like play guitar. I think the first song I could like strum on acoustic guitar, it was like Wild Thing. And my friend Jay, he played drums like in the school jazz band. So I think by 8th grade, I was already in a quote unquote band called Las Ardillas Malas, the Bad Squirrels in Spanish.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
And we would play like Wild Thing and like Louie Louie, which turns out it's the same song. But no, at that point it was just like the cool thing to do. I mean, I guess I don't think probably that many 12 and 13-year-olds are already thinking about what their career is going to be. But at that point it was just like fun, like why play music? Because it's fun. So it took a long time before it started to look like, hey, maybe this could be your life,
Yeah. And so after this, so basically fast forwarding a couple years, so you went to college, right? And one of I'm really fascinated by your career so far because I think you've made some very cool music in the span of having Bare Hands as your band. I'm actually really curious how did Bare Hands come to be? Because I'm not sure if I know the story correctly, so I'd much rather you tell me. But I think you wrote the music and then you kind of made the band surrounding the music, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, I mean, I throughout I went to Wesleyan, a small liberal arts school in Connecticut, and for, I didn't have a band for the first 3 years, but I was writing songs, in my emo band in high school. It was called Building a Factory, and I wrote most of the songs in that band.
The names, man, the names are
I
hilarious. I
know,
love it.
names. Building a Factory. I love that name, actually. My friend Paul thought it up. And so, in college, freshman, sophomore, and junior year, I was just kind of writing songs on my own. And it was the first time I was using a computer to record music. I would go to the computer lab after certain film classes I was taking and try to write a song and record it in one day. And so by senior year, I had become acquainted with Ted Feldman, who was the guitar player in Bare Hands up until a year ago, and he was in this other band, and they had started playing in New York and had been offered a tiny record deal with a small indie label that I won't name, and it made me really jealous. Just feeling really, really envious and
It would make
jealous
anyone jealous, man.
Yeah, that someone who was my peer, someone who was my age, was already being offered a record contract, even if it was the most paltry record contract in the world,
Yeah.
And Ted was playing guitar in that band also, and while we were working, we were interning on for TV in New York over the summer, and that was when I heard the record label story, and then I was okay, we need to start a band, and kind of begin an active mission to steal him from that other band, because he's a really good guitar player, a really good musician. And yeah, I knew, going back to Connecticut, I knew the rest of the band, Val and TJ, the rhythm section, from playing in hardcore bands and punk bands in Connecticut. They were in one of the bigger hardcore bands in Connecticut called In Pieces. And, we're just a rhythm section to be reckoned with, I would say, in the local Connecticut scene. They were also moving to New York. So, I connected the dots, I suppose you could say. But I already had, I needed the songs in the first place to go to them and show them that I had songs, It's kind of the currency, obviously. And at that point, I was very grateful that I had spent the first couple of years of college just writing on my own.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious, were you studying film? Was that something that was that your major?
I was. Both Ted and I were both film majors, yeah. Mm-hmm. Ted directed a couple of the music videos, too. Yeah, we're both very into film. He's working as an editor right now, whereas my skills have languished over the past years.
Yeah, that's crazy to me that you would be studying music in college and then at the same time you were just writing songs. Now, I guess what I'm curious about, and this is something we talked about a little bit earlier, and I'm guessing here, I think that maybe once your friend got the deal, like we were saying, that's when you realized that you needed to start a band. But prior to that, you were writing all these songs. I guess I'm curious if you ever did you have a lingering purpose for those songs, or was it just primarily a hobby for you at the time?
No, yeah, there was certainly intention. When I was writing those songs, at some point, I sure would love to put these songs together with a band or release them or something. I had been lusting after having a band since the end of high school. My Building a Factory, the aforementioned emo band of my high school days. Right around senior year of high school and the end of senior year, we, had things that kind of picked up. We were playing some more regional shows in Massachusetts and Pennsylvania and Rhode Island, that kind of thing.
That's cool.
We got to play CBGBs before it closed, which was really made me happy. And we kind of came to this crossroads at the end or, middle of senior year, hey, this band is doing okay. We could try to do this, we know other people at this point who have gone on, DIY tours and tried to make, this band work, and we considered it, but, I'm really glad that we didn't do that, even though I think that the band was good and we could have probably found some success in the emo scene, but I'm thankful that I wasn't, boxed into that scene, because I pursued it at the age of 18 and went to college and got a little space between it.
Yeah. Now, I'm curious here, and this is something that always fascinates me, because I think your story is very similar to a lot of musicians that I know and that also come to the show, that there comes a turning point around that age, 18 years old, 20 years old, right in between high school and college time, where if you've been doing music for a while, you either choose to continue doing the same route, or you sort of shift a little bit, whether it is to go to college or do something different or change the music altogether. You chose to go to college, right, and study TV. I'm curious, why did you choose that route? Especially because, and I'm speaking for myself here, at a young age, when you're 18, the success or potential success that can come from being in a fun band, especially if you're doing it with your friends, can be very appealing. You know what I mean? And I chose a college route just like you did, but I think everyone's choices are different and they're backed by different reasons. I'm curious what yours were. Like, what was it that made you choose to give up that potential successful life, which we know you made the right choice, but at the time you didn't. Right. So I'm curious, like, what drove you to go to college?
Well, for one thing, there were a bunch of factors, obviously. For one thing, the drummer was, kind of a genius and was going to Brown.
Genius. I love that.
Had visions of like curing cancer. He's a biochemist to this day and PhD and whatever.
Saving the world, man. He's saving the world.
Yeah, exactly. He has a higher calling. And, I could tell that he didn't want to do that. So that would, it was going to require finding a new drummer and also replacing someone who was one of my closest friends. So that made it less appealing. Also, I was experiencing at least some degree of pressure from my parents to go to school. They've been very supportive of Bare Hands and of my interest in music. But they're also academically oriented and, obviously thought it was a safer, more stable place to.
But also parents, they want the best for you. And sometimes that seems like the best choice,
Right, exactly. And, it's just a more normal thing to do than go to college. And also, I knew in the back of my head that I guess I kind of always felt like I owed my parents to like go to college. And then I kind of always pictured like the graduation date from college of the true moment of freedom. You go to college and you're free. You're not living with your parents. You're doing your own thing, and that's great. But you kind of still have to get grades. You still have to pass your classes and be an active participant in academic life on campus or whatever. Yeah. But then once you graduated, then it was like game on. Then there are no more rules. There's no more paths to follow. Then that's the point where you arrive at where your parents can't tell you what to do anymore.
Yeah.
Because at that point you have to make your own decisions. And so I think I knew even at 18, like, hey, first of all, college is really fun. Those were some of the most years of my life. So I anticipated having a lot of fun in college. And I also knew that, worst case scenario, even if I hate it, I'm done at 22 with the freedom to do whatever I wanted,
Yeah. I love that you're saying that because, again, I talk to so many different kinds of people and everyone has a different story. But I like your story because you seemed very much, well, first of all, you seem like a very grateful person based on what you're telling me. Not many 18-year-olds that I have talked to or met, myself included again, I was definitely a very, very selfish 18-year-old, I'll tell you that much, would not have thought about paying it forward to my parents. You know what I mean? Like, it seems like you, and I'm not saying you were sitting there thinking about, oh my God, I got to like do this for my parents, but I think you were very much self-aware that, there were some choices you had to make and you had a lot of different factors that guided you in your choosing to change your path, which we know paid off. But I don't know. I think I resonated a lot with what you said. I think so many kids nowadays, specifically seeing, the SoundCloud rappers and seeing, and with social media and all that stuff, college over the years, in my opinion, has gone a bit of a bad rep. You know what I mean? I love my time in college, but I definitely did a lot of learning outside of it. But you said something very important that I think a lot of kids hopefully will understand is that you wanted to pay it forward to your parents for their support. And then you also realized that you could continue doing your dreams after you were done. Do you think that's something that is important for every musician's life if they're at that crossroads? Do you know what I mean? And maybe that's a broad question, but I find it fascinating because I've never heard anyone say that before. Not on the show, at least, Yeah. Most of the time, college has always been like this, like, I had to do it, or I kind of just did it because, but you were like, no, you know what? I think I need to do this for my parents and for myself, and then I'll continue my stuff afterwards. Yeah, I like that.
Right. I have great parents. I just do. I love them very much, and they've been very supportive. And obviously they're not perfect, but I feel very lucky to have the parents that I was given. And there was definitely an element of trust there. These people have been here before you, and and hopefully have wizened brains that have aged beyond the kind of knowledge that you have attained at 18. So I was inclined to trust them about that kind of thing. And, I had been wrong about things in the past that they had been right about. So, whatever, it's just 4 years. Also, like, I wouldn't recommend going to college to study the arts. It was less about, I loved studying film, and I definitely got a lot out of it, and it was valuable, and I watch movies in a different way now and can talk about them in a more articulate way. But if your goal is to make films, or if your goal is to write songs and record albums, you don't have to go to college. That's just a fact.
You just make them.
It's not where the best and brightest of these fields learned how to do these things. That's why I was going to say that, I think probably the most important element of going to Wesleyan was just meeting people. I'm kind of an introvert, and just living in a dorm is just the kind of thing that absolutely forces you into prolonged and extensive social interactions with many different people, and I met Ted there, and he was absolutely crucial as a founding member and my songwriting partner for a decade. And just things wouldn't have been the same without him. Also just met a lot of people, who are still totally my orbit, who have helped us, make the artwork for the records and helped us make videos and, all kinds of things. So I think as a networking experience or opportunity, college can still be really important.
Yeah. And it's very interesting that you say this, because I always say this, there's a lot of young musicians that kind of come through this show and have different opinions, but do you feel like it's possible? And maybe the answer is obvious, but I'm curious about what you think. Is it possible to still still learn those lessons, the interaction outside of college? Like if you decide not to go in that age area, could you still potentially learn those same lessons? Because I agree with you. Definitely in college, I studied music business. And I will tell you this, I've learned so much more about music business outside of school than I ever did in school. But the people I've met are still some of the people I work with to this day. So I guess you can think of it, you pay for that networking opportunity, like you were saying, meeting all those people. But part of me always wonders would I have learned the same lessons had I chosen a different path? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I think you can certainly do it without college. College, I think it just kind of produces this bubble where, you're stuck with this, hopefully group of like-minded, individuals who are the same age, so it creates a closeness, especially on a campus like Wesleyan. It was like kind of in the middle of Connecticut. There's really nothing going on. You basically stay on campus for all of the 4 years. It's not like there's a lot you're missing outside of the campus grounds. So, I think that just kind of creates this petri dish potentially of creative individuals and projects and that kind of thing. But obviously, it's just like, the road not taken. What if I had moved to Brooklyn at 18 and skipped college? And, I think I surely would have found people to make music with. And, who knows how it would have gone. Maybe I would be a lot farther along right now. There's no way really to tell. But no, you certainly don't need college to find your creative niche.
Yeah. No, and I love that you're actually, I'm going to say this. You seem very self-aware. I like that. I like that quite a bit. No, honestly, like and it's refreshing, honestly, to see that in an artist of your caliber and someone who's a very good songwriter, to understand themselves and understand what they've chosen very well, because I think a lot of artists, not everyone, but I would say a lot, myself included too. I always include myself in the example. Sometimes we can spend and waste a lot of time sort of wondering what if or what could have been. But you seem very much aware of your choices. You seem very much aware that what you choose is sort of based on your experiences, and obviously anyone else's life is their own life, but you choose what's best for you. And I think that reflects a lot in your career, because you've had a very successful career so far. And I think, well, first of all, I'm curious. With the band that you had, so once you got jealous of those record deals, and then you put together your band, you were in college, you were in your last year, I think is what you were saying. Did you graduate college, by the way? Did you finish?
Did, yep.
Okay, cool. See, I love that. So what happened after that then? So you formed your band, and then I think shortly after that, you released your EP, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Senior year. I guess the summer before senior year was when Bare Hands had its first practice in 2006. And then senior year, the band had already like kind of started to exist like in New York. I mean, I have very fond memories of Ted and I, because Val and TJ were already in Brooklyn at this time. They didn't go to college. Or Val went to UConn for a couple of years, but didn't finish. So Ted and I were already driving down to the city to play shows senior year, and it was crazy. I mean, we had a residency at this tiny club called Pianos, Tuesday night residency, I remember, and we had a 9 a.m. class together.
Damn.
So we would drive down, we would leave after our afternoon class on Tuesday at like 4, and then, like 2.5, 3 hour drive with traffic getting into the city, get all set up, play the show at like 9 or 10 on Ludlow Street in the Lower East Side, and then pack it all back up and get back in Ted's RAV4 or my like really old Volvo and drive 2.5 hours back home. And Ted would, Ted's from Manhattan, so he didn't have a driver's license, so it was all on me. And
awesome.
I mean, God, I remember just many nights of just slapping myself in the face to try to stay awake, driving back at like 1 a.m. and then, getting up to go to this class at 9 a.m. It was difficult, definitely. I mean, it was very exciting, obviously, because it was the first time that I was, having any kind of success or notice in music. But it was also pretty batshit crazy to be, trying to run a band out of New York City while simultaneously, finishing your senior thesis film at school in Connecticut.
Dude, you were doing so much at the same time, man. I don't know how you managed to do that, but you know what? I feel like a lot of those moments happen in college. You just do so much shit that once you get older, you don't even realize how you were able to manage so many things at the same time. I'm curious for you, like, how was the music scene at that time in New York? Because I know, so I come from a jazz background, right? So I know the jazz scene in New York is definitely different from the West Coast where I'm from, but it's live and well. But I'm not sure where I would classify your music at the time, but I'm curious, how was the music scene, or how did you see the music scene in your genre? Like, how was it? Was it alive and well? Was it sort of starting out? Was it very congested with a lot of bands at the time? Sort of walk me through what was that like at the time?
Well, I guess it's hard to be objective about it because you don't really have anything to compare it to on a personal level. But I mean, it felt very active and vibrant. No, I mean, there was definitely a Brooklyn moment happening. The MGMTs and prior to them, the yeahs and TV on the radio. And no, I mean, Williamsburg, Brooklyn, North Brooklyn was obviously a very happening place in the mid 2000s. And, there was a lot of press coverage and a lot of bands getting signed quickly. And just a lot of kids. I mean, I felt like 3/4 of the population of Wesleyan moved to Brooklyn right after graduation. I certainly did. Ted did. We had a lot of friends who were playing in bands, and it was a very exciting time to be there. It felt like destiny, like I was supposed to be there in this moment.
Yeah. And so your EP, once it was released in what, 2007 or 8?
Yeah,
I think it was
2007. Yep.
Yeah. How quickly did you realize that was going to be, well, because if I'm not mistaken, I believe that EP was recognized and had some pretty good success. How quickly did that happen, if I can ask?
Yeah. So the EP came out with the help of our first manager. We had just cold called a lot of people, just built maybe 50 manila envelopes of, a 3-song demo and just, a little information about ourselves and sent them to managers that we knew of or had been recommended to us by peers in Brooklyn. And this woman, Veronica Gretton, was really our first believer, I would say, and managed us for maybe 5 or 6 years or so, and was, instrumental in getting the band off the ground. So, the Golden EP came out, through like her little label that she had in house, and she got us our first, more high profile shows at Bowery Ballroom and Webster Theater and Siren Fest down in Coney Island back when they used to have that. So as soon as we signed with her, it started to feel like a professional band. I mean, we weren't making our money off of it yet.
Right.
We weren't living off of the money from Bare Hands yet.
Very rarely does that happen on the first one. You know what I mean?
That's a hard mountain to scale. But
Yes, it is.
we were at the same time, we were being written about in the Village Voice and relevant blogs and opening for bands that we cared about. So it started there, and it felt like it started pretty fast.
Yeah. Here's something, one of the things that I'm always curious about. So when you're sort of in the thick of it, right, when you're trying to make it and you're trying to scale your band prior to getting signed or prior to getting that recognition, I guess, there's a different approach to being in a band. There's a difference in how you behave towards the band and how you behave towards what you're doing. Once you started seeing that you were getting these high profile shows, once you got your first manager and you were being written about in all these blogs and all that, did you see yourself change a bit? Did you see the way you were approaching music and the way you were approaching your career? Did that change a bit? And by that I guess that can mean anything, but I'm curious for you, did you sort of shift the way you were approaching your music after you started seeing yourself get some recognition and started seeing the wheels moving?
I don't think it really shifted how I looked at creating music, like writing music. I guess it shifted more how you look at life or something. I don't know. I remember like feeling scared and kind of overwhelmed by it initially. I mean, and it wasn't even that crazy, it wasn't like we were like being showered with millions of dollars or anything, but we had, I had friends who were getting big record deals, and it just felt like, there was just a lot of socializing to do. You know what I mean? I could feel that there were just powerful opportunities out there in the New York nightlife world, and I don't know, it just kind of scared me a little bit, and I just don't feel super comfortable in that world. And
has that changed? Do you feel more comfortable now?
Really changed that much. I think that's probably just who I am, and it's just not, I guess, the part of the business that I really enjoy that much. One thing I like about music is that most of the work is done by myself alone in a room. To be able to rely on yourself to produce music like that is really one of my favorite feelings of the whole thing. So,
does that have to do with you being an introvert a bit?
Yeah, I think it definitely does, and I mean, it's really powerful when you find someone that you can collaborate with. It's the best, like Ted and I, we've always said that once we were able to like look each other in the eye and be like, that sucks, and to be able to speak honestly to each other about the work that you're doing, that's really where the gold comes from, because, you don't want to lie to yourself when you're creating art, like, oh yeah, this could be cool or whatever. I think this works. You want someone who's a harsh critic to look at it and be like, that doesn't work. Let's try something else. And so, Ted was like that for a long time, and been writing with the band more. And Ursula, who's featured on our new song Blue Lips, she co-wrote 4 of the songs that are going to be coming on our new record, and that cool. was a really amazing collaboration.
I love her voice, by the way. Amazing voice.
Thank you so much. Me too. Yeah, she was like not at all, a musician in any real way. But I knew that she was talented, and I knew she had really good taste, so I kind of just forced her into helping me write some lyrics. From there.
You strongly encouraged.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just like after dinner, some nights I would just put on like an instrumental loop that I had and just force her to come up with something for me.
Yeah. You know what I'm curious about? So I'm not an introvert, so I'm the opposite. Well, actually, I would say I'm a bit of a hybrid. I'm definitely an extrovert. I love being around people, but I also enjoy my moments alone. But because I'm always trying to understand, how people think and why they make the choices. For you, as an introvert who's very talented and who takes pride in his songwriting and his work, is it hard to earn that trust for someone to be able to criticize your work? That's something I'm actually really curious about. So, for example, Ted, right? You were saying how it helps to have someone that can honestly tell you, hey, you know what? Maybe this isn't the best part. Let's change it. Is it hard to become that person who you trust? Does that make sense?
Well, I mean, okay, so you have to trust the person's taste to be able to take notes like that. So once I knew that Ted was a really talented musician and a good songwriter and stuff, that makes it easier. But I think really the lesson that you have to learn is to just not take personal offense to someone who's critiquing the work. You know, I mean, there's just this absolutely base human instinct to, if someone tells you to change something and something that you created, you're like, no, you're wrong. You know, like they're saying it sucks and that's not true. This is good and fuck you. You know, it really is just like this, you know, a fight or flight. I mean, it's somewhere deep within our reptilian brain that tells us like, no, they're wrong. You're right. You know?
Yeah.
And so, you know, being able to be like, he's not saying that I suck, you know, he's saying that maybe a part of this thing that you made might suck and that we could make it better. And, you know, it's just the acknowledgement that you're on the same team, you know, that you're like working to make this song better together, and that nothing he's saying about the song is a judgment of you as a person, you know. I think, and once you have that revelation, then the creative juices really start to flow.
Yeah. Did that happen in any of the songs that, you know, I think you have a handful of songs that have made it pretty big, that have succeeded quite a bit. Is there an example of a time where you were working on one of the songs, like say, for example, Giants, right? I think it was one of my favorite songs that you made, or 2 a.m. I fucking love 2 a.m. Did that happen at any of those moments when you were working on that song and maybe you showed it to somebody and someone recommended that you do something different and you understood and you maybe were like, okay, maybe you're right, and changed it and it made it to the final product?
Yeah, I'm sure. I can't remember specifically about those songs of that happening.
What,
but,
you mean you don't keep a notebook full of notes when people tell you that you're wrong?
Ted said that I was wrong about the bridge of Giants. No, I mean, Giants was like, Giants was really weird. I mean, I had written the beginning, like the base of the skeleton of the song at my parents' house in Connecticut. And then Ted took the train up to Connecticut, and I picked him up and he came to my house and we worked on the song in the basement like all night, probably 18 hours straight until it was done. Like, and we had never done that before. We had never worked at my parents' house in Connecticut before. And the product of that one session was Giants. And then he never came back. This is something that I kind of always wondered about Ted. And something that I've never even addressed to him, I don't think, face to face, but, you know, then he never came back, and I just always thought it was so weird that we made, you know, what could be called the most successful song in Bare Hands history, in this place using this method, and then we never repeated it, and that kind of always bothered me. But you know, I remember 2 a.m. certainly writing like, you know, 10 choruses before we settled on what's there now, and that being a really tiresome and difficult process. You know, sometimes you're just banging your head against the wall, you know, trying to like move words around like little Tetris pieces to like make them fit and make the message coherent and that kind of thing. And sometimes you just have to put it away. And sometimes you just have to be there for 4 hours straight listening to the same loop until you find the right word. Yeah, that's definitely what happened on 2 a.m.
Well, do you have a specific process when you write your songs? Because I think you specifically have a lot of interesting elements in your music that I love. I think I'm not even sure. I think that your music is so unique that you can put it in a genre, but you could also put it in 5 others, and I think that's what makes it such great music. Do you have a very specific way that you go about writing your songs? Because I know I'm not a songwriter, I'm a drummer, but you know, I hang out with a lot of songwriters, so I know that many of them wait for inspiration to strike. You know, I think that's important for any artist, you know, or musician. You kind of need that inspiration to be able to write something good. But for you, do you? I'm not going to say force, but do you sort of have a discipline or a sort of a method that you just make yourself sit down and write on purpose, whether or not you make something really good?
Yeah. I mean, you really have to if you're going to do this as a profession. You know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for everyone else, obviously, but if I only wrote music when I felt inspired, then I would not come up with enough material to have this band be active. You know?
Yeah. Which makes sense.
Yeah, like, you know, so during the writing of our next record, I was in LA and I had a little practice space, like maybe 15 minutes away from my house, and I would say probably 3 or 4 days a week, I would, for some reason, I just work the best in the mornings when my brain feels sharpest. So that's like always when I do my creative work or would like to do songwriting. So maybe 3 to 4 days a week, I would get up at like 8 a.m. and then go to the practice space and be there by, 8:30 or whatever, and then try to work until 2 it is kind of one of those things like you try to do it as many days out of the week as you can because you just get better at it the more you do it, and I know sometimes that can feel weird or like it's not going to be true, like that you're forcing it. You can't force creative work, but you can force creative work, it turns
Absolutely.
out. And even if you're not feeling inspired, you get there and, you start doing something and, all it takes is one cool riff or one cool sound for you to get enough inspiration to keep going. So yeah, no, I definitely, you have to be kind of methodical about it, or at least I do, and have some kind of planning and schedule. And I mean, also at this point in my life, it's my only job, so I would be remiss if I
You have
if
to
I
get
wasn't
better at
able
it,
to get there.
you have to be the best.
Right, or try at least. Yeah.
Yeah. No, man, I love your method, and I think there's like a saying or something that goes along the lines of that, of like creativity and how, it's everywhere or it hits you in the most unexpected times, but at the same time I think it has to find you working. Like I think that's how you're able to create really good stuff, is you got to keep doing, you got to keep working on your craft, and then creativity will spark at you, which I think you've done an amazing job so far. And I'm curious, so right now you were saying how you have a new album coming out very soon, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that are happening right now for your band? I know that you're just finishing off a tour, and I think you're about to go on another one, if I'm not mistaken.
We are.
Yeah, so just what are some of the things that are happening, man?
Yeah, so we got 2 shows left to do on this Walk the Moon tour that lasted like a month, and then mid-March we're going to go on tour with Foals again. We did like a full U.S. tour with them last year, 2 years ago, and they are excellent dudes, and we get along with them really well, and we like their band a lot, so it's definitely exciting to be going out with them. We missed them. And we have another tour also that's going to be happening, I think, May and June, but it's not announced yet, and I can't really give the details about it yet. And then the record, should be coming out late spring, and I'm really excited about that. It's been, 2 years in the making, and also the first record that we've made without Ted in the band. So, it's an exciting new chapter for Bare Hands. And we're looking forward to getting new music out there and just playing a bunch of shows this year.
Yeah, I love it, man. I love that you're consistently doing stuff with your band and that you're always getting better and really making cool music. I'm curious for you, and I know that you have a show to get to, and I'm curious about a couple more things. Like,
sure,
as an introvert, and this is something I'm really curious. I'm trying to learn. Do you enjoy the touring side of the business? And this is an honest question for you, just because I understand that for me, being around people is the best thing ever, right? But for you, and I guess it depends on the person, right? I'm curious for you, honestly, like how does being an introvert sort of play into you having to do this in front of a lot of people, consistently, if that makes sense? Yeah.
I mean, the introversion doesn't really have much effect on the performance side of it. It doesn't, because it's not, I'm not talking up there. I mean, I'll put it in a couple of lines, I think, you here or there. But, it's not like I have to, like, address these people, or there's not really going to be any social awkwardness while I'm on stage necessarily. Backstage hallways, that kind of thing can get kind of weird. But, I think you find at this level that a lot of musicians are kind of weird also, and I've been doing it for a long time, so you fall into like a rhythm. It can definitely be kind of Groundhog's Day, like same day every day, like new venue, but it all kind of feels the same. And I think once I have a routine like that, it doesn't really bother me as much, or it doesn't feel awkward or difficult for me to do it. And I like being around my band, We live on separate coasts now. I moved to LA like 2 years ago, and they live in Brooklyn. So,
oh, nice.
To be able to reunite in the van and, crack some old jokes and stuff and check
That's
in
cool, man.
Is cool, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's how most bands operate once you get to a certain level. Everyone can kind of go wherever they want to go, and then you just meet up when it comes to the show, which is amazing. Right. How do you like living in LA, by the way? Someone who's from the East Coast and Connecticut and all that, and then you move out to LA. Are you loving it?
I do love it. Yeah, no, it's been really amazing. I've only ever, prior lived in Connecticut and then Brooklyn. Those were the only living experiences that I've ever had, so it's a pretty small range there. So to go to LA, it just felt brand new and like going to an alien planet. And, I've taken up surfing, just classic California cliches, like gotten healthier and stuff
Hey, you
like
have
that.
to be the cliche, man. That's what California's for, man.
Right. They're cliches for a reason,
Oh, yeah, man. I mean, if you haven't tried surfing yet, you have to. It's amazing.
I recommend it to everyone to an annoying level,
Longboard or shortboard? Board?
I have an 8-foot wave storm and I have a little six foot guy also that I'm getting a little better at. I haven't been able to go. I mean, this whole tour has been on the East Coast and I've been craving it. So I'm looking forward to getting home for a little bit.
I eat shit every time I try a shortboard, man. So longboard for me
really
only.
Well, I have a 6-foot foam board. And so that it's really floaty. Once you get the pop up is harder. You have to be way more exact when you pop up than on a longboard. Like kind of anything goes when you're on a wave storm. But once you get up there, then it's I don't think it's that difficult compared to a longboard.
Oh, hell yeah. I highly recommend everyone to try it. I know it sounds cliche to say so, but there's something about catching your first wave that changes your life. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, it's magic. Definitely makes you a better human being.
Oh, hell yeah, man. Well, I mean, this is going to turn into a surfing podcast after this.
Awesome.
That's just what it's going to be. But Dylan, I honestly wanted to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to talk to me. Honestly, like I love learning about your process to music. And the one thing that I gathered from you, you just seem very knowledgeable about your choices, which I think is very important for me to tell everybody. Like everyone's different and everyone has their approach to music. And that's what I encourage everyone to do, is to hone in on who they are and kind of do themselves, do you kind of thing. But for you, you speak in a way like you understood what has happened, why it's happened, and where it's going. And you kind of seem okay with it. And I like that. I don't see that very often. You know what I mean? Like I see many different kinds of personalities, but yours, I think, has this very much like, I don't know what to describe it as, man, but I like it. I like that you understand what you're doing. You understand what you did and where it's going, and you're kind of going with it. And I love that, man.
Totally. Yeah. Cool, calm, and collective. That's what I'm shooting for, Eddie.
Cool, calm, and collective. I fucking love that. Well, honestly, man, to kind of end things off, if there's something you could tell someone, like an 18-year-old version of you who's trying to basically do what you're doing now, is there anything you would advise them to be doing? And it could be absolutely anything, but to kind of summarize the interview and conversation, what would you suggest someone who's in your shoes, who's maybe a little younger, to be doing?
Right. It's the songs. The song is the thing, and even beyond the song, the hook is the thing. All you need is one. All you need is just one perfect hook, one genre-defining or generationally summing up hook. It could be 4 words, and that would really be my advice. When you're writing songs, start with the hook. Start with the hook.
I love it, man. I absolutely love it. Dylan Rao, thank you so much for joining me on the show, man. It's been an absolute pleasure, man.
Thank you so much, Eddie.
I hope you enjoy my conversation with Dylan. That's Dylan Rao of Bare Hands on the Nebula Music Podcast, talking about his life and his approach to music. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, Bare Hands does have a brand new album coming out on May 10th. That's going to be in about a month or so from the release date of this interview, which I'm excited for because their songs are amazing. Everything that I hear coming from Dylan always blows me away, so I can't wait to hear all the new stuff that they're going to be putting out on this new album called Fake Tunes, being released on May 10th. Now, you ready for this? They're going to be on tour with none other than 21 Pilots. That's it. 21 Pilots. I might as well just end it right here because that's it right there. That's the band to be playing with, to be opening up for. Bare Hands is going to be supporting that tour and going to be playing songs from their new album, which I'm excited for and ecstatic for. Dylan, you are the man. Thank you to his management for helping me facilitate this show. And I hope that some of Dylan's life story inspires you to continue doing your thing. At the end of the day, I want to make sure that that's the mark that I leave on your mind, is to just continue doing you. I guarantee you, if you continue exploring who you are, what makes you different, and what you like to do, success is inevitable. I'm a firm believer in that, and I definitely bet on it. So, thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, I love you, take care, and I'll definitely have a new interview for you here very soon.